So welcome everybody to Love Speaks Love. I'm your host Denise, and my very special guest today is Nicky Hamid. Welcome, sweetheart.
Thank you. Welcome to us. I'm so excited about being here. I've got some pre-instruction and so I don't know what's coming until it comes.
And I forgot to say to you in our, because we were so busy chatting, I normally start with a little heart-to-heart connect. So I normally just do a little visualization, and I'm excited for this as well because I very much feel the presence of the elementals. With, I mean, of course, they orchestrated this, so of course they're going to be with us. So while people are just gathering with us on Facebook, I'll just invite us all to bring our awareness to our heart space. And let us breathe love into our beautiful hearts. And as you do that, your heart will expand, and the energy of your heart will expand, get stronger. And on our out breath, we can release anything that our body is ready to let go of. And we can make any sounds on our out breath, any sighs. And as we breathe love into our beautiful hearts, feeling the love going all around our bodies, into our energy field and beyond, into the space, the rooms that we find ourselves in, and into the buildings and beyond. And extending our heart awareness out to the heart of Gaia, our beautiful planet. And when we connect with the heart of Gaia and we breathe Gaia's love into our bodies, and I always feel her acknowledgement of all that we are and all that we do, and her deep gratitude and her love. And extending that heart awareness out to the heart of the sun, feeling that beautiful solar energy moving into our hearts, into our bodies. And extending that heart awareness out to the heart of Source, Creator, the Divine. And feeling source energy moving into our hearts, into our bodies. And acknowledging the heart-to-heart connection with all of us present here on the live, all that watch this on the replay or on YouTube. Feeling all of our hearts beating as one in this one unified field of love. And acknowledging the presence of the elementals. Those beings from the fairy realm. And the multitude of beings in that dimension, that unseen realm. That realm that's coming ever more presently into our awareness. And acknowledging the presence of the guardians and the ancestors of the lands that we all find ourselves upon in this now moment. And Nicky, just to hand over to you at this point, just if there's anything you wish to add to it.
Behind everything, within everything, God is love, and thou art that.
Beautiful. So if your eyes are closed, just opening them whenever you're ready, just moving your body a little bit, still with your awareness in your heart space. So thank you so much for joining me today. And as I mentioned on your, I don't know if I put this in your post, but I know I put it in the message, our first message to each other. So I've been getting a strong nudge from the Fae realm, from the fairy realm, to speak more about them, to share encounters of them and experiences of them. And I feel there's been a lot of misunderstandings really between us and those beautiful beings. And it feels that we're kind of coming much closer together. And I wanted on Love Speaks Love to bring the elementals more into people's awareness as well. So when I saw your post where you wrote about the fairies on the mountain, I thought, I have to ask you if you'd like to be a guest. So thank you for sharing that post. Your posts are always inspirational, and yeah, just so full of love. So thank you for hearing the call, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation. I love this opportunity of us sharing our love and our knowing and our harmony with the multitude of beings who play on this plane. Yeah. And I like to begin by giving a backdrop.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever I say, folks, is not it. It's much, much more. So I point to, but each of us paints our own picture. And I want to say that we're right in amongst it, aren't we, folks? We're right in amongst it. But to remember that we are multi-dimensional beings. And this is what we're coming to realize. And I venture to say there's not one of you who's not living in more than 3 dimensions simultaneously. And we're becoming aware of that. And many of you experience it directly, and others feel like you're not here, you're there, and then you're there, and suddenly you're back here. And there is this continual flipping in our daily life, within our day. We're multi-dimensional beings. And so when I'm referring to fairies, I'm referring to one realm amongst many. We are frequency, we are vibration, we're light. And that's what everything is in consciousness. And just to put it in a little box, but it's not a box that contains, because it, as I said, whatever I say isn't it. But you can think of each realm as having 12 dimensions, or 6. In actual fact, it's 13 and 7, or 7, because there are layers of light in each realm, as it were. So we could say that there are at least 12 species, if you like, or reflections of elementals. just as there are 12 levels of the path into light for us. The 13th is all, or some split it up into 7, because it's like there's 6 pairs, which makes 12, and the 1, which is a 7. And so we have the 6-point star with the point in the middle. But these, we're talking about layers of vibrations of light within a realm, as it were. So when we're talking about the elementals, we talk about the fairies as one expression. The ogres and the all the ones we feel that might look quite ugly and can be quite threatening, because if you think of the 6 pairs, dark and light, there is this opposition. So fairies is not all just sweetness and light. There are they have their own shadow beings. So it's like as above, so below. So within the elementals, we're talking right to the devas and the guardians, because everything that exists on our planet, that shall we say is organic, has a consciousness, it has guardians. It has people that serve it, or it has beings that serve it. The elementals that we understand is the fairy world are one lot, but there's many. Give you an example. In New Zealand, each country I find has its own characteristic fairy or elemental beings that work with nature and are very close to nature and tend it, if you like, tend nature. They have guardians over them and devas above them, but it's not above demand. It's above authority, just as we as human beings have those beyond our physical realm. And each one has a guide or a number of guides. And they are ones who hold the hand out, provide a resource that we can tap into. And the elementals are the same. They have their own beings and guardians that they can tap into. So it gets complex, if you like, but it's not. It's very simple. Because the hierarchy is not a hierarchy of authority over. It's a hierarchy of awareness, if you like. And everyone has, in our universe anyway, free will to choose. The fairies have free will to choose. Although apparently they really have no will because they've already chosen. They're in accord with what they choose. But we all have unique expressions. So the problem, if you like, or the question is, how can we be in contact with these realms? Because the veils were there and the veils have lifted. They've lifted, but you still see the fog. So what do you do with the fog? You either go indoors and wait for it to clear, or you walk in the fog until you see it clear. And this is what I hear the elemental saying, come walk through the fog. Talk to us. You may not see us because of the fog, but talk to us. Make believe. Make believe. Because it's in your pretending, it's in your make-believe, you call them closer. So be as little children, pretend, because pretend is the call, in the same way as bringing your guides and being able to speak to them requires us to imagine. What does imagine mean? Imagine. It means to, well, we can't imagine anything that doesn't exist. So when I go to a waterfall, I see a guardian. In the ones I mostly see, any waterfall or each big place, like a wonderful bend in the rushing of a river and so on, there are guardians. Often for me, I see a Pegasus, or a giant even, or some kind of what we call fantasy being expresses themselves as a guardian, and they'll be different for different people. But basically, you have a similar guardian with the same feel about them. And they're guardians for the place, for all the beings who work in that place. Seeing. So start with pretend, because I know many of you are remembering what you saw when you were kids, when you were children. But some of you have always longed but feel you cannot see. You may not always, people may not always be able to see like we see with sight, but you seeing and knowing. How many of you have walked through the forest and felt like someone's looking at you? I don't think probably there's any of you who haven't. Why? Because they are. Because they are. And if you walk with fear of that seeing, you attract those who like threatening sometimes. But if you listen, you'll hear the song or feel a vibration. And so you talk to that, just as you sit under a tree, you can talk to the tree, and the tree will tell you things. It will tell you about what it's seen, but it will tell you what its ancestors have seen. It will tell you what a story of that you can reflect in terms of humanity, because they've seen humanity. It will tell you all sorts of things. The same with insects or rocks. They all have consciousness. They all have memory encoded in, just as we do. So everything is alive. And it is magnificent. But we, each one of us, has to entertain the possibility. Entertain the possibility and make believe. The fog will clear. And you will feel the joy that Denise and I feel just thinking of it. Do you have any questions?
Would there be anywhere that you would draw the line at consciousness? And I'm just thinking in terms of, because you said about anything organic. And I think I'd even extend that to, say, for example, my car or my house. It feels like they have a consciousness as well. I don't seem to be able to like draw the line anywhere in that. It just feels to me that everything has consciousness.
Yeah, because one way of describing this, the elementals are in the etheric realm, as it were. Ether is the place where everything is created. So we create, this physical body is created first in the etheric world. So my car, which I call Hermione, every day I get in her, I stroke the dashboard and say, thank you, Hermione, thank you. Let's go. And she is beautiful. She's marvelous. And I had a friend, a spiritual friend many years ago, who was a mechanic. And he had this ability to put his hand on the car, talk to the car, and the car would tell him what was wrong and go straight to it. He was an amazing mechanic, which affirms what you're saying. Absolutely. Everything is there. Even this, even a plastic bottle. It, you know, okay, it was supposed to be man-made, but it's made of elements of creation. It's much maligned because of the misuse, but it's much maligned. It has a consciousness. So we have so much power to take our food in our hand and bless it. Whether it's cooked or raw, bless it. Because it's alive and responds. And we have, each one of us has a body diva. And that body diva knows the divine blueprint for the physical body. Who talks to it? Who befriends it? Who, when they're unsure of what to do physically or haven't got a clue, goes to their body diva and says, tell me, or do, take these pills that the doctor says, I need, take these pills and transform them as you need them and dispel whatever. But I trust you and love you, body diva, because my connection to earth depends on your presence.
And even down to individual organs as well. My latest thing is connecting with the fascia of my body, the connective tissue. And I find it amazing that we're only just learning now about fascia as we're moving out of this seeming separation. We're actually learning so much more deeply about the connective tissue of our body, the fascia. And the interconnectedness of everything within our body.
Yeah, and immunity. How amazing our body is, and some of the bio beings in our gut, and how it knows what to do and to use, and what to dispel that it doesn't need, and how to recognize, if you like, friend or foe. but it's like just click them out. And so we have this body intelligent at all levels. And we don't have to know it all, because we have a diva who knows it well, who's the specialist. And we have spirit beings who are masters of changing the light in the auric field that relates to physical body, relates to mind, relates to emotions. But it requires our asking. And that asking with love and knowing that thou art that. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing.
I'd love to get a little picture of little Nicky. We were talking before we came on about your family and about your mum, and how, and I had similar as well. My mum and dad both learned yoga when I was 3. So, and I remember a friend of my mum's, my Auntie Eva, as she was called, who grew 4-leaf clovers in her garden. And, you know, she said it was because of the fairies. So I'd love to get a little, I'd love to create a picture of Nicky the boy and how Nicky connected with this world that we're talking about now.
Yeah. Well, I think the way I put it is that I never disconnected from it, because I was always allowed to be the child I was, clumsy, so action bound that I used to get into trouble because I just wasn't aware. Didn't think, but I saw. And I saw from very young. Of course, I didn't realize then, I didn't realize in my childhood and teenagers. It was only later, as I opened up, that I had the remembering of all the things I experienced. But at 2 years old, I used to sit, and I didn't walk till I was nearly 3. I used to crawl, yeah, right, because I'd sit. And I'd sit and I'd see colours. I'd sit and see portals and go through and be in another place. I used to sit with a dragon, great green dragon. If I saw something in a storybook, they would become real, my own version of it, in a picture book, and they'd become presences for me. Totally psychotic, you could say. But it was real, so it never figured as something special. It just was. And so it continued. When I was a teenager, the instances of this were far less because I was busy in the world. You know, Wordsworth says, it eventually fades into the light of common day. As children you saw, but it fades into, so it kind of faded into the background. However, I had the masters come in and walk beside me from time to time. Nighttime, going to bed was very special, always for me. It was a time when I had deep healing. It was a time when my sight was there. And so there was this light renewal, remembering. But when I woke, I forgot that world completely and immersed in the world out there. So there was always this juxtaposition, as it were. And I didn't have any put downs about any of that. I just, somehow, my parents must have taught me indirectly that there's a time when you say things and there's a time when you don't. And so I didn't share them with people who didn't have that feeling. So I hardly shared. Same when I was a scientist at university. I didn't share those things. It was private. Because I was taught, as it were, that love was what you share. The rest will follow when people are ready. So I spoke just before about multidimensional because people are ready. And I painted a picture, which I said is not it. Because we each paint our own picture. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's helpful. I can give you lots of instances of seeing fairies and so on, but I think the interesting thing is they really became more direct and apparent, apart from odd times, of their presence when I was teaching spirit in a spiritual group for many years, taking a meditation and satsang, as it were, for years. In my home, we had a group that we called the Brothers and Sisters of the Golden Light. And we would have, it was guided by the Great White Brotherhood, it was called then. If you like, Ascended Masters, but the Great White Brotherhood was behind it. And we had initiation. People were initiated when they felt they were ready. And we had an initiation. The room was prepared very carefully so that we took out all vibration and allowed the elders, as it were, to come in. And we had a grand circle with flowers and candles in there. And no one was allowed in there for it was prepared in the early morning and it was left there till the evening, and no one was allowed into the room so it could build up its own vibration, their presence. Used to keep the sliding doors open, and the fairies started to come in. No one was allowed. But the fairies came in, and they would dance around the circle of flowers, adding their vibration and their lightness to it. And that was very poignant. Every time we had a meditation, they would come in. And then we had them as a retreat place, did the same thing. And the fairies came from everywhere and danced, and the pixies and so on, they danced around here. This is one example of their presence. They felt totally at home. And the old, if you like, my beloved sister and elder in physicality, she was the one who was the seer. And she provided, if you like, the speak of what was happening, because I didn't catch all the speak. I could see, but I couldn't catch all the speech at that time. Subsequently, over the years, doing retreats and on various occasions, the fairies have come to me. But normally, for me, is what I call the littlest fairy. She's tiny and she sits on my shoulder and kicks her leg and speaks. But I see other fairies too, and other beings. In New Zealand, we have, I was going to say before, each country has its own kind of form they take. As a characteristic in New Zealand, a lot of the elves and pixies and fairy types are very light green or yellow in colour. Whereas you go to Australia and they're much browner. Yeah. And talking about the light and the dark, I went to a place near Byron Bay, I think it's above Newcastle, I can't remember the name of it, it's in the bush, but by the sea. I don't know whether you'll know it. Well, that had we were staying in tents, and I was speaking in larger tent or in a sort of an amphitheater in the bush. And on the first morning I woke up after arriving and going to sleep, I looked out and we're amongst the trees with grass and so on, but they're very darkened trees that you have typically in the bush there. And I saw this figure sort of jump out and then jump back in behind the tree, you know, and every so often it came. And it was shaped, had a pointed head, long down like this, with long sort of spidery-like arms and spidery-like legs. And they're quite characteristic, and it was jumping out and it was like challenging. And I've never seen these before. I did remember afterwards seeing it in paintings of the Aborigines. But there was an old, I'm not sure what you call them in the Aborigines, but equivalent to the, not witch doctor, but the elder shaman. His name was, what was his name? Joe. I'll say Big Joe. Anyway, I had a chance to talk to him, and I told him about these. And he said they're called gawawas. And gawawas are not to be tangled with, because they can be very mean and vindictive. And he told me the story of a lady, a man who used to get drunk on Saturday night. When he got drunk, he saw these gawawas and he'd take his bullwhip to them, you know, because he was scared of them. He kept doing this. And one day, their little baby, 3 months old, disappeared. They took the baby in reprisal for what he did. So there are the good and the bad. We had a property some years, 3 years ago. It's a big property with lovely bush and ponds and so on, lovely trees and so on. A lot of elementals there. Our guardian in that place was a senator. He used to march around and he protected and looked after. And he used to come because my wife Glenn has sight too. And tell her when there was something needed. But there was a place down towards the bottom of the property by another pond, which had this funny feeling about. And there were ogres down there, a little flat. I don't know what you call. I call them ogres. They're flat. They're squashed down. They're fat, and they're very, kind of warty face and long nose, and they're a bit gruesome looking. And they loved to scare people if they could. I just used to laugh at them because I knew them from before, and I'd take them a bit of tobacco every so often, and they'd laugh. But they were there to warn. They didn't want anybody in that place.
Yeah. And some areas seem kind of, that's the thing, it's like not everywhere is for us to tread. Some places are, a bit more special, a bit more sacred. And so they're quite protective of those spaces.
Yes, the Maoris call it tapu. They're places that are tapu, and it's usually where they are a common one that has appeared to them. They call it taniwha.
Yeah.
And people are not allowed to go there, but I go. But I go. And what I see is like a dragon. They're usually like a dragon. They're very large. And I can see that the tapu is given because it's protecting the sacred. And many Maori people have fear of going in those places, of breaking the tapu. But the tapu has a positive reason. And the taniwha can be very threatening, because it's like, if you don't go in sacred reverence and humility, but standing in your truth and strength, you bring something alien to the place. And they won't have it. They won't allow it. And the shaman and the traditions know that. So often the fear of God, we say the fear of God is put, is placed there, but it has a reason, and the spirit has its reason to guard the sacredness. So this whole world, this whole world all around us all the time. We don't have many fairies and beings in our garden like we did in the other garden, but they're over the road. And they said, we can whenever we want to. We don't have to remain because they've got a huge forest. Hardly touched by anyone. Why wouldn't they? And they're quite happy because I've always put the guardian around my property wherever I live. I have one on each corner, north, east, south, and west, when I go to a park. properly. I walk the boundary and ask these beings to come. And there's a whole dome over the property. And they hold that space because it's a sacred space. Anyone can do this. But you have to have gone past the make-believe. But you start with the make-believe, folks.
What would you say to somebody living in the city, maybe not even with a garden? What would you say to them about connecting with those realms?
Well, plants help tremendously. We have a thing called the bamboo, which connects up to the plants and plays the music. And that's beautiful. So we know that they're alive, and Glenn's got green fingers, and she talks to them. They bring life in. We can do it with a fish pond, with fish, anything like that. But even if you have just one plant and speak to it, look after it, listen to it, because it tells you when it's thirsty, when you've forgotten. They do. Sometimes the plants actually kind of grab you and say, come on, what about me? What about me? But we get used to signs. However, you can also call. Why not have a spirit for your house and call in someone? If it's not an elemental, then it can be galactic. Because what applies to one applies to the other, in a sense. Although they're totally different consciousnesses, as it were. But yes, it's our intention calls it in. But it helps us very much to have things like plants, because we eyeball them and they remind us. And we do need this physical contact because it's grounding on earth.
And it helps to tune into the fairy realm if you start to tune into your plants and kind of turning that inner dial to pick up their signal. The more you do that with different things, like the trees, if you go for a walk, the easier it is to pick up the frequency of the fae as well.
Yeah. When you mentioned trees, then because my mother used to sing to me a lot, and I was a voice soprano. I used to sing. I still sing, not as nice as a voice soprano does. Here we are. This is Nicholas. This is Nicky, and that's, if you like, my ideal of Nicky. Me, happy. Away with the fairies. No, not away with the fairies. Grounded, but into everything that's possible, because everything is possible. And here is a guardian, because the littlest fairy, there are bigger fairies, and they are like angelic fairies who are, if you like, larger than life, larger than us. And she represents, there are many, we all have many guardians. We're not alone, folks. We're not alone, folks. And this sort of represents it at a grounded level for me. This is why I'm here, to be the little devil angel, to be the devil angel, because I do like to not stir a bit, but yeah, Mum used to say I was mischief. And this one who tolerates and loves regardless, but sometimes often go, not with judgment, just with a reminder. And if I'm in tune, I hear that. And I'm aware that I can choose to stop any moment what I'm doing in the fairy realm. But in New Zealand, we have what the Maoris called Patapaliki. Patapaliki, and I believe they're in many countries, are people that are around about 2 to 3 feet high. And they almost copies of human. They have even horses. I've seen even horses that are miniature like that. And they roam the bush in many places, and many Maoris have seen them. Some of them people are a bit afraid of the Papapaliki because of tapu.
Yeah.
But we have a lovely man in this country. His name is Gary Cook, and he spent his life, it's Sir Gary Cook. Gary Cook spent his life knowing the Maori people, getting to know, and the legend and the spirit and the heart of the land, and the Patapaliki and the fairies. Even though he doesn't see, he has this connection that he passes on to others. And he and I and some others, he was getting together a film with a kamatua of a tribal leader on the Patapaliki, and I was a very tiny part of that. But we went onto the marae where the Maoris were, and he shared the movie that he had produced and talked a little bit about it. And what really interested me was the reaction of the people, the Maori people who were there, because the adults generally voiced their fear and trepidation. And having seen what Gary had produced, they felt much better about it. But the children were like this: hey, yeah, next time we go in the bush, let's see, they're going to look for the Patapaliki. So there's a readiness, and it's time to drop the fear and the terrible, unkind lie that make-believe means it's not real. Bullshit. No, I'll say elephant shit. Pretend is a precursor, folks. Pretend is a precursor to calling in the realms, whether it be angelic, whether it be light beings, whether it be elementals, whether it be galactics. Pretend, and going with your pretend, because you can't imagine what doesn't exist.
You've actually partially answered. You've moved on to where I was going to lead it, actually. So when I was in New Zealand, when I was in, there was so Christian Van Week filmed the documentary with Gary, Voices of the Forest, Voices from the Forest.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah. That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, and she told me when I met her, I think it was not long since she'd filmed that, and they actually accidentally filmed those little beings, and you can see them kind of peeking their head round from the side of the tree. And I'd forgotten that she'd told me about that, and I was looking at Gaia TV and I put Faeries in, and that came up. And it wasn't until I saw her in it that I was like, that was what she told me about. And it's such a beautiful documentary. It's so it's a really special documentary. But you can, and I feel more and more that that our cameras these days can capture things that maybe previous cameras couldn't.
Yeah, there's a guy, Will, on YouTube, isn't there? Have you seen him?
No.
Will somebody, I've just seen them recently, because someone up there feeds me YouTube stuff that I think about, and then they feed it to me. But there's a guy, Will, I don't know his name. He's in England, whose photographs, and they're quite clear, the pixies or whatever he calls them. He sits in the forest, and they've learned that they've got to sit with their back to them and somehow capture them behind them, because they won't. They move away when you look straight, looking for them. Yeah. But Gary, I mean, I've been to his place. What's it called? Oh, River something. His property. It's a beautiful property. It has glowworms and its own river and things. And one night, he took everybody around, and I was supposed to be there with them, but I got held back because there was so much happening. But that night, I mean, I saw these pasapaliki everywhere, and where the people were talking on the hill, they were gathered round in a large circle all the way around. There was the moonlight, and these little 2 foot high people and their animals were all there, watching, listening. And I've seen him at a retreat. He doesn't see them, but they follow him. They go with him, and they're miles away from their home, but they go with him because they love him so much.
I do. Sometimes I'll mirror photographs, especially photographs of trees or rocks. And Gary does this as well. And you can, it's like you've captured beings when you mirror them. And I do feel the authenticity of it. Like, I can't, it just feels real to me. You can see so many beings, like faces within faces. The eyes of one face will become the face of another. You know, it's like fractal in its nature. But it's the feeling that you get, like when you're mirroring these photos and you move them, and suddenly there's this being, there's this face looking directly at you, and you can feel the energy of it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And in my posting, I did, you saw, but I've done two or three others in a sequence on fairies. The littlest fairy, maybe because she knows me and she knows my penchant for geometry and for physics and quantum physics and so on. She knows my penchant for that. But we talked, and she talked. It makes her translation to fit into that, and my conversation, from my point of view, fits into hers, and there's a sort of a harmony between them. But one of the things they've taught me, the elementals have taught me, is, of course, there's more elementals coming out, like out of Middle Earth. They're coming out to express as we come together within ourselves, because they have been bereft. For thousands of years, they've been bereft of our contact, the innocence of being that humans have, and the fact that we hold the Christ light, and they have been bereft of that. So they are so excited, just as the galactic beings are excited about humanity waking up. They're so excited if we can bring our loving presence. The fact that as a human being in love, bless the very ground they walk on, you and I. And so there's that mutuality. They can give us back our innocence. We can give them back a light which they have yearned for ages, just by our loving presence and our acceptance and embrace of them. Can you imagine it, for them to be so seeing what humans have, that they dearly love, but having to wait. Now's the time, folks. So your imagination, your pretend, is so important to them. And that's why they always say when they leave me, tell them we're here. Tell them we're here. And that's the excitement of you and I coming together here, and everybody who listens. They want to tell you that they're there. Because after all, as for us, so for them, thou art that.
And it's a two-way street, isn't it? It's, you know, we can gain so much from them and the wisdom that they have and the connection that they have with earth. You know, as you were saying before about gardening and talking to the plants, the plant knows better than we do where it would like to be in the garden. The plant knows better than we do who it'd like to have as its neighbour. And from the micro to the macro, that goes on a global scale. It's like it's our connection into the heart of Gaia as well, and learning how to work with Gaia without stealing from Gaia, but making it a more reciprocal process.
Yes, and we have a huge debt of gratitude to give to the elementals who've maintained this beautiful earth against all odds. They cared and tended for it. So we have so much gratitude to owe to them. And the greatest thing we can give them is our presence, our loving presence. Yeah.
Have you been to Inner Earth, Middle Earth, through those portals that you've been connecting with since you were a child?
No, I don't think so. I have to say I have travelled into the duns and seen the worst of humanity. But no, because for me there hasn't been much of a division. It's, there's so much of what's in Middle Earth is expressed on the surface in different ways, both dark and light, that but there's been enough. It's been enough to deal with, as it were. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the so I was saying to Nicky before that I got a little bit of sunshine today, and I was able to go and sit in the garden after a few days of drizzle and not really particularly wanting to be outside. And they gave me a few pointers of kind of questions or subjects, and I think you've pretty much covered everything. One thing, so you've got, say, a dyad or whatever a spirit of a tree is. My feeling is as well that the Fae help in some way with flowers blooming, with fruit and kind of changing to fruit and that kind of thing. Do you have any feeling on that, their role in that regard?
As far as I understand it, it's working with light. And it's like weaving light, and they're weaving it in the ethers. So it's like taking the auric field and playing with it, as it were, singing their song. One way of putting it, singing their song, and they're doing their dance. And as they do that, they are creating, if you like, currents, subtle currents that the plant can nourish itself, or if it's wounded, can heal its wounds. And it's like sharing the enthusiasm. As they share the enthusiasm, the plant wants to lift up, raise itself. Now, that's one way of putting it, but that's only one way. So they They play with the ethers. Just as spirit beings can come in and heal your psychic wounds, as it were, because it's malware in your light system, your auric field system. And so they play with the light waves because they can see exactly where it is, and they can play with it, and they can, if you like, resolder, rewire, pull out the old circuit and place it with new, free, expansive light. That's the true healing, if you like, that spirit helpers can actually do. We can't do it as human because we're busy and we don't see. When we pass over, we can see much more clear our own auric field. But they can. This is why we're not alone. We don't have to do it all on our own. We should ask. But it must be free will and must be the highest. But they can do anything. But they similarly work on our auric field in the same way as I would see fairies working with the plants. Yeah. Rather beautiful, as above, so below. It's very beautiful watching the colours and the waves that they produce when they're dancing. When we, yeah, you go.
Yeah, beautiful image when you said that. Keep going.
yeah, and the colours, and the amazing thing is, you know, the colours that we see. From 7 basic colours, but on the other side, there's 144 colours. We can't even imagine that. You know, there's such beauty in the 7 mixed, but they play with these colours, and they're sparkling colours. And as a boy, when I was very young, I used to love going to bed. There were periods when I loved going to bed because I closed my eyes and then opened again in the dark. There would be all these coloured lights, and they just passed by, and they didn't have to dance even. Just watching them just took me off. And it's all around us. Sometimes, you know, when you go into a point of awareness where you can picture or think as if or imagine, but instead of seeing out there a form, it's just shimmering light. And then it becomes real because you are seeing into a light realm, because everything is vibration. I remember as a younger boy, well, I was about 12, I think, feeling this and feeling that everything was made up of this, and seeing it so clearly. I thought, the wall is vibrating. If I vibrate fast enough, I can walk through it. I tried and I went smack into the wall. But it just felt so real. One of the meditations I've often done is saying, imagine this, you know, go into your space and imagine you're just vibrating sparkles of light. And so it's everything in the world. Everything in the world is just sparkling light, points of light. Zillions and zillions and zillions of them. So you're sitting in space. Some people get, oh, this is like, I'm not sitting on anything. But yeah, that's the quantum world, the world of the tiniest, if you like, the quantum world.
I loved how you described it as weaving light, and I fully felt the presence of the birds within that as well. Like it's like a beautiful symphony of the birds and whatever other creatures there are around that, you know, make sound. that it's all weaving. It's so much more than we.
Yeah, because the scientists say, no, there's no such thing as space. It's all full. Plasma. It's all full. And think of the fish, the whales and dolphins, but all fish, they're weaving. The water is like a crystalline light weave, because there are all these currents going together and flowing within themselves, and the fish make it. And see how they when they come together in shoals and they move like this, very easy because they're just moving with the currents. But it looks like they've all got one mind.
Yeah. And the bumblebees as well, when they're kind of like hovering over the earth, I very much feel them weaving energy. And I remember one time in Byron, the fruit bats were flying over, and normally they fly over at sunset, but this was quite early in the day. And they were going into this big spiral, and then they started to do a figure of 8. And I just knew that they were doing something with the energy on the earth, even though they were up in the sky. I could sense that they were in some way affecting the energy fabric of the earth.
Mm. Yeah, and when the insects talk, they talk of doing the same thing. They're moving things on the earth itself, right down on the earth, and they're moving things, and they're playing with currents and affecting the field, as it were. And each of them has their own speciality, but everyone plays it. Everything plays its part. And you can talk to an insect and have conversations just like with trees. My daughter, who passed on when she was very young, she and I used to go around the garden, and she used to help me because I was growing vegetables, and there used to be insects that tried to attack them. So she used to help me. We used to pick up the praying mantises and put them on the vegetables. And we both had conversations with the praying mantises, and yeah, they all have. You can speak to anyone, just like Dr. Doolittle. Anything, anyone you can speak to. And at first, it might seem like a made-up conversation in your head, but if you start the conversation and hear those things, gradually you'll hear the voice in your own head has a slightly different feel about it. Why? Because it's them. It's the spider. It's the ant. It's the bird. It's the flower. It's a tree. It's a cloud. Anything. We've got so much to look forward to.
I'd love, if you've still got time, I'd love to, I noticed one of the questions, I've been so intent on what you're saying, I haven't really been looking at the comments, but Marita asked about the dragons, and if you consider the dragons to be part of the elemental realm, and I'd love you to share some of your kind of experiences with the dragons.
Yeah, well, I'd say that they are elemental, mainly now, but they have been physical. They have been physical, as some, especially the guardians, have been physical, but not all, but they certainly are. They're very real, very etheric, and not just etheric. We're not just talking about etheric. Is not one band. It's a bandwidth, but it's not one frequency. It's many frequencies. And she said, "What experience?" I've had many experiences, but the dragons have changed shape for me often over the years. It depends. When I was young, they were very big. They seemed big, and I have one dragon that comes more often than any other, and he is big. He is very big, but he can go there. He can change size. It's mostly the green dragon, but in recent years, I've also the white dragon has been very clear, and it appears to me that it ends up as you expand. It ends up there's two dragons. There's two dragons that come and go in your experience. One seems much more forceful and strong, and the other one is much more fluid. Mm-hmm. Some people might call them, there's a water dragon and there's a fire dragon, but for me, even that's mutable. But yes, for me, they're real. For me, they can make themselves quite concrete in a way. We're quite close to being in physical form. And from my understanding and what they tell me, they have been physical, as close to physical as you could get. But the lines blur when we go back to our origin, because we came in as innocent beings from God, and we're very much at home with the elementals. They were very much apart. So because there was a lack of blindness, we could see, we would hardly sense a difference, because we were coming out of the ethers, as it were. And they were going into the ethers, and there was a coming together. So it would be like we both felt we were on equal terms in terms of the manifestation of our frequencies. Mm-hmm. And then there was the parting of the ways, as it were, and everyone took their place, and that wasn't wrong. Then the unkind lives came after that. So we do know, and so the dragons have been ones, and I think a lot of the guardian beings are the ones that are in this realm. Unicorns, for example, they're in this realm between, as it feels like it's been between, because they have been in a more physicality, and they have left and not gone. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's why there's less difference now as we're raising, as we're changing our frequencies as well. There's less of a differential between us. So but I guess everything is evolving. Like even the fairies are growing with the planet too.
Yes, they are. We're all ascending. The whole planet and everything in it is ascending. Another thing I wanted to say about the dragon, because the person asked about experiences with the dragon, I have noticed over the years that this main dragon acts as a guardian, but it also acts as a guardian for my loved ones, because when my partner, my wife, Glenn, is away, my beloved is away, and she's doing her work, her spiritual work, as it were, there are times when the dragon comes, and when she's away, and I know that she needs protection, okay? And so it goes. It's like what we call pakwas. Pakwas are your animal guardian, and everybody has them. They may have one or two. Some have a few more that come and go, but your pakwa can move and change form and change size. Pakwas are very useful, because when you want to know something, you don't want to bilocate, as it were, you can send your pakwa to go and find out, because they go in disguise. Very good when you're doing psyop.
Do you feel that dragon is you? Do you feel like it's an aspect of you?
Well, it's me in the sense that we're connected by vibration, but no, I think it has, well, it's in my hologram, so yes, it's part of my reality, but I do believe it has its own existence, its own consciousness, just as my body diva has its own consciousness. And the littlest fairy is a part of me, a part of my family, vast family, but it is itself. And if you think that that's only a belief, maybe it is only a belief, but I like to have things that I converse with, which I don't think are me. Be boring otherwise, just talking to myself.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you would like to, that you want to make sure that you speak of while we're here?
No, I think they can tell. I think if you listen to the elementals, they'll tell you that the world that appears out there for all of us at the moment is just passing. They've seen it all, in a way. Just to remember who you are and remember them. Because we're one family. Every one of us heard the call, and the call was to come and help. And how are we to help? To bring our light. And the elemental realm would love to have it too. And that helps them to come out. Because they're no longer wasting their time with humans who have been made to be so cruel, heartless, and unfeeling. Yeah. And they know we're not. They know we're not. But they've been waiting for it for a long time. We're here, folks. Come and see us. Thank you. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Nicky. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. We arranged this, you and I, because it happened as we saw. We answered the questions without answering them, without having to know what they are, because we're all in it together. Yeah. Thank you, beloved sister.
My absolute pleasure, and thank you to everybody who's been with us in this as well. Like it just feels so magical. I know I'm going to have trouble sleeping tonight because I think I might go in the garden for a while and just have a little connect with them, even though it's dark. Sometimes that's the best time.
There are fairies at the bottom of our garden.
Absolutely.
Not so very far away. You cross the garden shed and you keep on straight ahead. I do hope they will come to play.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. And if you're on YouTube, if you enjoyed this, much appreciated if you like and subscribe to Inner Peace with Denise. And thank you, everybody in Facebook land as well. And please share this along, because I think it's an important message for everybody. So thank you all for joining us. And we will see you soon. Love, love, love.